Soothing story time, spooky tales. The sneaky smugglers and the ghostly coach. The creatures of nature gathered at the Tree of Colours to tell spooky stories. "It's my turn, mine," said a Bim. So the others made themselves comfortable and listened to a Bim tell a story. I'm going to tell you all about how wily Wilhelmina and underhanded Uther got their names. They had many adventures, but they were only named once. They were very sneaky, but not as sneaky as me. Well, they were smugglers. They bought in boxes quietly by sea all sorts of luxuries that cost a fortune to buy, and you had to pay lots of tax on. Anything with a big tax on they bought in and sold for massive profits. Fine cloths, lovely scents, yummy food. But there were customs people whose job it was to stop the naughty smugglers and make them pay all the tax. Customs Officer Jones had caught many people smuggling and was sent down secretly to catch Wilhelmina and Uther. But they heard about it. They had friends who liked to buy things on the cheap and didn't want the smugglers caught. So one stormy night the smuggler's ship was coming in. Wilhelmina and Uther rowed out despite the huge waves to the ship to get their untaxed luxuries. They battled and fought the waves. The sailors on board the ship went a lovely green colour and was sick over the side, but Wilhelmina and Uther rowed their hardest to the ship. They got the naughty luxuries into the sneaky little boat and fought and rowed and fought some more till they were near the shore. But oh no, they smashed into a rock and a few boxes plunged into the fierce sea. But Wilhelmina and Uther didn't. The boat had a nasty hole in it now, but they didn't sink. No, they fought on and got the boat to the shore. On shore their gang waited for them and unloaded the luxuries. But oh no, Customs Officer Jones was out patrolling that night and saw the lantern they had left on the beach to guide them back, because even though they were so very stealthy, they couldn't actually see in the dark. But the customs officers too had lanterns to see, so they did not fall over the edge of the cliff. So the smugglers could see them and they could see the smugglers. Both sides looked at each other. The smugglers grabbed everything they could carry and leapt onto their horses. The customs officer leapt onto their horses and charged down to the beach. The smugglers charged off the beach up the hidden path on the side of the cliff. The customs officers shouted. The smugglers laughed. But the smugglers were carrying heavy boxes on their horses, and the customs officers were not. They would soon catch up. Wilhelmina and Uther came up with a plan. They would take the boxes and the rest of the gang would split into two and draw away the customs officers. So Wilhelmina and Uther took what boxes they could carry, threw the rest into a thicket they passed to hopefully get later, and the rest of the gang turned their horses and rode off in two other directions, slowing down a little for the customs officers to see. They did see, and off the customs officers chased, splitting into two, and Wilhelmina and Uther rode off with their boxes. But Customs Officer Jones caught up quickly to the first of the gang and saw there were no boxes, while some of the customs officers caught up to the rest of the gang and arrested them. Customs Officer Jones doubled back, followed the hoof prints, and saw 3 sets. Giving a shout of triumph, Customs Officer Jones took some officers and rode off following the 2 tracks of Wilhelmina and Uther into the night. Wilhelmina and Uther, meanwhile, had been shouting to each other at the tops of their voices. The storm was still blowing, and they rode along the cliff path, the waves still crashing below. They came up with a plan in case the customs officers came after them. They turned their horse from the cliff path and rode through the darkness across hills to one of their hiding places along a rough stony path. They rode to Apple Blossom Farm. There they had a coach hidden behind the bales of hay in a barn, and one of the now arrested gang looked after the horses they kept there. Customs Officer Jones was following the hoof prints over the hill towards the farm. The dashing Wilhelmina and Uther took wool and cloth and padded the hoofs of the big white horses. They padded the wheels of the coach. They stuffed cloth into any bit of wood or metal that jangled or creaked. They then harnessed the horses to the coach, loaded up the boxes inside, got several black sacks, a grey dress and veil, and set off into the night. Uther, the coachman, outside, Wilhelmina inside the coach with the boxes. They did not light the lamps yet. They still hoped the customs officers were not following them, but they were. Uther knew the countryside round about and drove the horses slowly out into the storm. They were only about half a mile away when Customs Officer Jones got to the barn and found the 2 horses left behind happily eating. But they also found coach tracks leading out into the night, fresh coach tracks. Customs Officer Jones let out another cry of triumph, and they all set back out into the storm, following the coach tracks. Uther drove the horses on into a valley and through a village. Customs Officer Jones reached the top of the valley and saw a shape passing through the village, blocking out the lights of the houses as it went past. So the customs officers rode along the top of the valley where there was no path, only fields, to overtake the coach. Through the farmers' crops they went. As the coach passed the last of the houses in the village, there were angry shouts as the villagers saw the coach race through. Uther slowed up the coach and stopped when they were past the houses. He jumped down from the coach, and Wilhelmina passed out the black cloth bags. Each bag had 2 holes cut in them. Wilhelmina lit the 4 coach lamps, 2 on the front and 2 on the back, while Uther took the black cloth bags and placed them over the heads of the white horses, so that all that could be seen was their body. The eye holes to the front so they could see, Then Uther put the last black cloth bag over his own head. Wilhelmina was dressed in a grey dress and had painted her face with grey paint and drawn black circles around her eyes. She then put on a grey veil. They laughed, and Wilhelmina got back inside the coach, and Uther back up to the front of the coach to drive, and off away into the night they went. Customs Officer Jones was waiting at the end of the valley. The officers had formed two groups, one on either side of the road, to jump out. The storm still raged about them as they saw 4 dim lights coming towards them. The lights grew brighter and brighter until they saw a terrible sight. In front, closer and closer, were 4 white, headless horses, drawing a coach, driven by a headless coachman. They all sat frozen still on their horses, as the headless horses ran quietly past on padded hooves, and the coach went quietly past on padded wheels. Not a clatter or a jangle did the customs officers hear. And inside the coach there was the grey ghost of a woman in a veil with black staring eyes. The coach passed and disappeared into the night. 2 of the officers had fainted and fallen off their horses. The rest ran away into the night, including Customs Officer Jones. They did not get home till the morning because they hid up the trees and in bushes until it became light, and did not mention what they had seen. The coach passed through several more villages, terrifying the locals. Wilhelmina screamed as they came into the villages. One poor villager fell off her porch and landed in a spiky rose bush. One man climbed up onto his own roof and hid in the top of his own chimney. Various villagers spent the night hiding in the privy at the bottom of the garden, several under their own beds. One tried to hide his head under a cooking pot, and it got stuck, and he could only be removed from it by the blacksmith in the morning. One emptied the log basket out, hid under it, and then crept along the floor to the back of the house like a tortoise, and stayed there till morning. The woman who jumped into an animal pen got chewed by goats, and the man who had secretly snuck into the pantry to eat some apple pie and blame it on his children came out to see the noise, screamed, tried to run in the dark, and ran straight into the apple tree, which his wife said was simple justice, as she and the children shared the pie and contemplated the ghostly coach on its excellent timing. But most of the children were asleep and were very annoyed that they missed all the excitement. Wilhelmina and Uther reached their secret hiding place and unloaded their boxes, and laughed until they fell off their chairs. Then they lay on the floor and laughed. Then got up and danced the night away. They found it so funny they could not resist telling their friends. The tale slowly spread round the farms and villages, and when the customs officers got to hear of it, they swore to get them next time. And wily Wilhelmina and underhanded Uther swore to outwit them the next time, and that is how they got their name. cleverness. The end.